Hello guys and welcome back. In this video we're going to be talking about how selfish men always succeed. Now that doesn't mean you've got to be selfish all your life. Personally I've got a goal to make as much money as I can by about 40, 50, probably 50. And then in the last 40, 50 years of my life, if I'm lucky enough to live long and I keep my health, I'm going to give a lot of it back and just work on charitable projects, foundations, etc. and just try and give a lot of money back. Can't take it with you, so why not? But in the first place, I think in the first, let's say 10, 15, 20 years, you need to be as selfish as possible. In your teens, definitely. In your 20s, especially your 20s, you should be the most selfish motherfucker on the planet. If you put it this way, I've always said, if you've got a lot of friends, you're doing something wrong. If everybody likes you, if everybody says, I like that guy, he's a nice guy, I really get on with him, got nothing bad to say about him, it means number one, you don't stand for anything. Number two, you do too much for other people. People only like you when you help them out. People only like you when you have time for them, you hang out with them. If anybody who's tried to go on like a success march at some point in their life, what they will find is that once you stop going to certain places with certain people, so if they're saying we're going to the club and you're like, I'm going to stay in, I want to get up tomorrow and go for a run, they find it strange. They start thinking, what's wrong with Chris? If you say, okay, I'm gonna stay in, I'm gonna work on my business tonight, don't you guys think that there's more out there? When you raise that question to people, don't you guys think that there's more out there in the world, that we can be more successful, we can have more? You start inciting those questions and you start trying to rise above your little social group, birds of a feather flock together until one bird fucking flies away. And you'll see that people come back at you, friends, people that you thought were your closest friends that wanted the best for you. As that quote always says, people want you to do well, but never better than them. And it's a real dangerous situation, guys, because as soon as you start rising up and wanting to do more, people will try and pull you down. And it's not malicious. It's just they want you to be with them. They want you to be spending time with them. And people like when you're on their level, especially friends, because you all grew up together, It's not... Especially if you go and succeed, they've got no excuse. They can't be like, oh, he's from a rich family, he's from this, he's from a different area to me, because they know that that's not true. They've grown up with you, so they can't make excuses and shit, so that doesn't help. But in your 20s, in that scenario, you need to be as selfish as possible. So this includes, I personally think, and I've told you guys millions of times before, that is being single. I think that's the biggest one, because that's the biggest, most selfish move that you can pull. I think it's staying away from, going halves on a mortgage with a woman, your wife, whatever, getting married, like I said. And having kids, definitely. Having kids is a very, very tough one, because it's a beautiful part of life, but you need to be selfish enough to say, look, I'm going to focus on me. And don't get me wrong, guys, it's a dick move. It really is a dick move, and I've done it myself. But at the same time, it gets you to where you want to be. And then in 10, 15, 20 years' time, you'll look back and say, okay, I can still have kids now, but I've had one hell of a life, and I helped everybody around me. So that's a lot of the time people don't understand why you're doing things. A lot of people will say, oh, he's selfish, he's arrogant, he's this, he's that, he's whatever. But when you get to that point where you're super successful and you start helping everybody else, then, the light, they see the light, everything comes together and they realize, what it was all for and what it was all about. But in the early days, like I said, teens, pretty selfish, 20s, massively selfish. In your 30s, early 30s, I think you need to stay the same. I think you need to be massively selfish. And then at that point at 35, I think 36, the male advantage, I think you can start bringing it down then, and you can start doing things for other people. I definitely think once you hit 30, if you've already seen some level of... Put it this way, guys. The age thing is hard to go on because we're all going to climb at different speeds. But I definitely think every tier of success that you climb up, I think you should add something to your life. So in the early days, you shouldn't be taking a fucking minute off. Like, it should be that much of a grind. If you start earning a decent amount of money, let's say 6 figures a year, then, well, let's say 50,000 a year, you should probably take Sunday afternoons off to watch whatever sport that you enjoy. If you start making 100 grand a year, maybe you should take a Saturday off to spend with friends and family, just to have a bit of a social life. Once you reach something like a million a year, maybe you start taking weekends off. But you just have your own scale, guys, depending on where you want to get to. There's no exact science to this. But you're being selfish towards other people, but you're also being selfish towards yourself. So you're saying to yourself, you want to go and meet women? No, fuck you. You want to go and eat that junk food? No, fuck you. It's a very disciplined environment in the early days, and you're kind of being selfish towards yourself. Your selfishness is your goals and your success being put above your kind of entertainment, your fun, your wants and needs, I'd say, your passion for life, your enjoyment, your fulfillment in general. Because you need to be that selfish. You need to be a selfish dick towards other people and yourself. And it doesn't have to come out as being arrogant. You don't have to be like, fuck you, I'm staying in. I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur. But you can just say, no, look, I'm going to stay in tonight. Here's what I want to do. I don't try and change your life. Please don't change my life. And trust me, guys, friends are going to go that way. Girlfriends are going to go that way. And it's sad because, if we were on this planet for 200-300 years, you could do both. You could do the first 100 years enjoying it, having a family life, etc., and then the next 100 building a business, next 100 enjoying it. But we don't. We have on average around about 76, 80 years now. The first 20 years of that, or the first 18 years of that, is a write-off. So you're looking at like 60 years. As long as you stay in good health. Probably the last 10 are only slightly difficult. So you've got something like 40 years of actual life in between that. 45, 50 years of actual life. So you do need to be massively selfish in the early days in order to set yourself up. Because if you go, in my 20s, I'm going to help people. I'm going to be friends with everybody. I'm going to do what other people say. I'm going to go down the marriage route, the kids, etc. Your life's pretty much gone. You can still have a life. Obviously, you're going to enjoy it. But if you had any aspirations to be successful or have anything of worth in your life, if you wanted to be a multimillionaire, if you always wanted to drive that sports car, if you wanted to have homes in 7 countries, if you wanted to spend 4 days a week not working, in the future, it's just not going to happen unless you sacrifice those early years. And like I said at the start, guys, in the title of this video, selfish men are usually always successful. Usually always. Because they're selfish with their money, they're selfish with their time, they're selfish with what they want to do in life, and they don't make friends along the way. Maybe people come into their life and it's fantastic for them, but they treat them well, but they still stay focused on that end goal, that end vision. And it's tough. You go through heartbreaks, you can go through you can lose friends and stuff, and you can even lose family. And it's shit, but I think, like Felix Dennis said, when you get to that end goal, you'll realize what it was all about. And you can always make friends again, you can always apologize to people, and time's a great healer. But there'll be other people, if you lose friends, there's other friends. If you lose girlfriends, there will be other people in the future. They might not be as good, they might be better, they might be on the same level, but you got to take that risk, guys, because there's so many people in the world. And you only got one life. And I think if you go down the route of, let's say, having kids or something, you've now you've passed the baton. You're not living for them. And I think with us living so much longer now, and I think with people looking a lot younger, living up, let's say 45-year-old man can still look very young, can still look very good. And I think if you're selfish in the early days, you can, as a man, like I said before, the male advantage, if you're selfish in your teens and 20s and probably early 30s, from let's say 35 to 60, you can have like this giant 25-year chunk of life where you pretty much bucket list that shit. You tick every single box, you do everything you've ever wanted to do, and you got more money than God, or more money than you'll need personally. And you can still tick all the other boxes. You could be 52 years old and rich and marry a beautiful 30-year-old woman, have kids, go down the marriage route. You can get a massive house and then never work another day in your life and just spend every day watching those kids get brought up. Like, you can do it, but in the early days, you need to be selfish. And I guarantee you guys, any successful man was selfish in the early days. They stayed away from everything else. They pissed people off, but they got what they wanted in the end. And just remember that, guys. Next time your friends ask you to come out, next time, you're thinking about going on 7 dates in a week, or your girlfriend's asking you to do this and do that and save your money for a mortgage, but really deep down you want to start a business, remember, it's tough. Life is hard. You're going to have to cut some ties. You're going to have to cut that rope, and you're going to have to swing on your own, because you can't do it with a lot of people. Your circle needs to be small. Sometimes it needs to be so small it's just one person, which is you. because a lot of people won't see the vision. And even people that do, they might see the vision, but you can't take passengers along on the journey. So it's very, very tough. But being a selfish man, it sounds counterproductive. It will get you places in life early on. So I highly, highly recommend it, guys.